Welcome, Dolphins fans, haters, and everyone in between to your favorite show discussing the greatest franchise in sports, the Miami Dolphins. This is the PhinsPod. My name is Moose, your host, and today we're going to look at the offensive players that the Dolphins coaching staff will get to work with in Mobile for the Senior Bowl next week. The game will be played obviously on January 30th, but they'll get an entire week leading up to it to work with these players, coach the players, get a good vibe of their personality and see how they might fit with the team. So it's a really great opportunity for the Dolphins coaching staff and the team going forward. Some of those names that play in the game may end up wearing aqua and orange come the fall. So after we talk about the Senior Bowl, we're also going to take a look at some quotes that Brian Flores said on ESPN with Cameron Wolfe about, what the team's future holds and what it means for them going forward. So we're going to talk about that, and as always, we'll take a quick look at the latest stories published over at PhinsPod.com. Before we get started, if you're watching on YouTube, really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button, leave a like, and if you're listening as a podcast, if you could leave a rating or a review, that'd be really appreciated. But without further ado, let's dive in.
Goff hit, ball comes loose, Dolphins have it! Across midfield, it's Van Ginkel, and he will take it all the way for a Dolphins score! Kenny, these Dolphins are for real. They are for real. They have an answer for this empty package. They are literally going to run the Rams out of this empty package because it is not working. Emmanuel Ogbah right here coming off the edge. And the funny thing is, it's been pressure. Usually defenses, they go to be safe and conservative when offenses go empty package. Instead, it's been get after them. And I'm telling you, if they don't fix that, the Rams don't fix it, it's going to be a long day. They cannot run that package right now. And Van Ginkel with the touchdown. Almost ran out of breath there. He just made it. And he's going to keep that football. His first NFL TD, 79-yard return.
So last week was nuts. There were a bunch of wild rumors and reports. They're still going on right now, and we're going to get them for the next few months most likely. But last week was really when they started picking up steam regarding Tua Tagovailoa, and specifically those quotes from internally where players were sort of voicing their dissatisfaction with his development as a player and doubts about who he could be in the future. So there was a lot going on in Miami publicly that definitely needed to be looked at and examined, and I think it's a great sign that Brian Flores took it upon himself to defend his quarterback and sort of defend the direction of the franchise because, frankly, everyone in Davie is not doubting the situation. They at least have a plan. Even if they do decide to bring in Deshaun Watson, they don't feel unstable about what's going on right now. There is a sense of stability and cohesion about the vision of the team. So it's actually very refreshing that Brian Flores came out in defense of the overall movement because, look, even if it fails, right? Even if it in a couple of years from now we look back and Brian Flores' regime did not work and, there was so much hope and it just didn't end up working out. We've seen it before. If that ends up happening, no one's going to blame him for, at this point, looking back, saying that Tua Tagovailoa is his quarterback. All it shows is a belief in your starter and your guy, even if they do move on from him. Look, Cliff Kingsbury said that about Josh Rosen, and that definitely, at the time, quelled some of those thoughts on Kyler Murray versus if he kept it sort of 50-50. So I think it's a great sign from the perspective of an outsider and obviously from the team's perspective, seeing your coach go out and defend you, it's definitely really good to see. So in a one-on-one interview with ESPN reporter Cameron Wolfe, Flores discussed this past season as well as what he hopes to see from his young signal caller. I mean, the agenda is right there in the title on ESPN.com. You know why Flores agreed to the interview. It's titled, Miami Dolphins coach Brian Flores reaffirms support for Tua Tagovailoa. So some quotes from the piece that really sort of, I think, paint a picture about what the Dolphins think right now. Brian Flores said, a lot of attention gets paid to Tua, but I thought he made a lot of improvement over the course of the season. I'm excited about the future with him, Flores told ESPN. He's a young player, talented player, bounced back from the hip. I think this is a big offseason for him. That year 1 to year 2 jump will be important, like it is for all rookies. So that's Flores just right there talking about how, hey, He's a rookie, guys. Like, as much as the criticism, it's just in terms of how he played and some missed reads. If you break down the film and you really want to take a look at how he performed, he was a rookie. So you have to understand that growth and development is still allowed to happen. And in history, that year 1 to year 2 jump, like Flores mentioned, it's really huge. And I think we're really going to see who Tua is early on next season. If he does make a bit of a leap and we see some dynamic plays and he's really reading defense as well, it's a great sign for his development. If he comes out next season struggling and it doesn't look as great as you would want it to, then sort of these concerns that people are expressing now, then I think it's fair to raise them. So Flores continued stating, criticism comes with the territory in the NFL across the board. Our team did a good job ignoring that stuff. Anyone who saw the Dolphins this year saw that we were a tight-knit group, and I think that's still the case. The idea that there's any kind of fracture is overblown. Preach. I thought there was a lot of support throughout the locker room. My message to the team has been to ignore the noise, and the people inside the building are going to tell the truth to you. Without all the information, how do you make any determination about what's going on? So exactly, I think that's, first he's sort of defending, his quarterback, the fact that he's a rookie. Now I think he's sort of pushing back at the media. Like, how are you guys making these grand assumptions about what our plan is, what the status of the plan when we're so early on? And not to mention, frankly, they went 10-6. Like, they had a good year. Tua went 6-3 as a rookie. So I think Flores kind of pushing back makes sense at this point in time. Again, it is the media and outsiders' absolute right to question, and I do think it adds great talking points. It makes it fun, and I do appreciate it as a fan of the game, as someone who helps run a podcast and a Dolphins website, PhinsPod.com. Like, it's something I love, but at the end of the day, as a coach, you don't give a shit. You don't care what we think or what anyone on the outside thinks, and that's a good thing. So it's a positive thing that you're hearing that coming out of Davey. And then, to wrap it up, he said, we learned, talking about Tua Tagovailoa and what they learned, Brian Flores said, we learned that he's healthy. He still has a lot of his mobility. That's also great. He's accurate in the Arizona game. He brings us back in the fourth quarter. He brought us back in the Kansas City game. So these are moments. So that was a quote from Flores. These are moments where he's specifically talking about, pointing out moments where he saw something from Tua. And I think as fans, we've talked about that Arizona game and second half of the Kansas City game and even that Cincinnati Bengals game. You saw a really, really good quarterback and the potential of a guy who could dice a defense apart and surgically manipulate his way down the field. And that's what Tua was advertised as being. And if he becomes that, then great. I think the Dolphins found their guy. But people are really wanting to rush to judgment because he didn't do that year one. And he physically looked like a small guy. And, he had bad numbers, even though he didn't. But people feel like he didn't have explosive numbers relative to Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow's pace when he was playing, even though they're completely different styles of quarterbacks and different styles of offenses. But Brian Flores continued stating, he also didn't play as well in other games. He had some bright spots and not so bright spots. That's the life of a rookie. If he continues to learn, study, stay healthy, get stronger, work on his footwork and his eye progression, and pick where he left off, then I think we're going to be happy with his improvement. There it is. And that's an end quote right there. There it is. That is Brian Flores explaining to everyone his thoughts on Tua. And I think it's clear right there. Look, if he continues to learn, study, stay healthy, get stronger, work on his footwork. So all those are simple things. Like, hey, just improve a little bit on your comfortability in the offense and at the scheme. Not learn, he didn't say learn defenses and put his head in the playbook or nothing concerning. Really, really work and make sure that, he learns the offense. Nothing worrisome like that. Just continues to, study, stay healthy, get stronger, work on his footwork and his eye progression, which is just standard things for quarterbacks. I think we're going to be happy with his improvement. Also projecting a positive end result. So I think the article that ESPN produced, I think it really went under the radar because people want to talk more so about Deshaun Watson's unhappiness and how Tua didn't play as well enough as he should have, whatever that means. So, whatever it is you think about Tua Tagovailoa and in your opinion on what he will be as a quarterback, and if you hated what you saw this season too, it's your opinion. That's fine. But to give up on a guy after 9 games when, statistically speaking, there's no precedent to give up on a guy like him. I think it's just, it's foolish. It's foolish. And you'll end up in the same cycle that you've always been in, looking for a quarterback. Right now, there's a guy who has shown, like Brian Flores said, he had some bright spots and then also not so bright spots. So that's the life of a rookie. He's not going to be a rookie anymore. I'm excited to see what Tua develops into, and it looks like Brian Flores is too. So that's good to hear. Thinking about why Flores approached ESPN and why the article even sort of became established, he knew he had to get on record because the narrative was shifting. It was very apparent. ESPN was talking about it, NBC was talking about it, local radio was talking about it, some fans were talking about it. Tua is not blind to that, and as much as you don't want to, bend yourself to the outside noise, as Flores said in the piece itself, you still want to, show trust in your guy. And so I think getting in front of the talk as he did here, it's going to help stop it from building entirely all offseason if they stayed quiet and people questioned where the Dolphins were going to be in terms of Tua. Look, the Dolphins have come out and said it. As much as you might believe behind the scenes things are going on, or you might have your own thoughts about what you think the team should do, publicly, if you're going to believe them on face value as a team, and so far they haven't really lied about player statuses. I feel like they've been a pretty upfront team with that. So if they believe in a guy, they'll say it, and that's what they've said about Tua here. So it shows support for his guy, and it's going to go a long way in keeping the trust strong between Flores and Tua. You don't think Tua appreciated that? You don't think after getting all those article notifications, and even if he had it all off and his head's out of that, which it probably is, which is a good thing, he still can sense a vibe. His friends might say things, other players might say things or see things. His teammates will definitely see things. So then having a notification pop up of the head coach coming out and saying, this is our guy. I don't care what people are saying. It's not true, and they don't know what's going on. They're not inside the building. So that's a great thing for Tua to see and at least for his teammates to see. So going forward, they know the direction of the franchise and know where to fall in line. And that's the best way to see what this team is made of. Without seeing everyone bought in, you don't know what the ceiling of a team is. And if Miami wants to build a consistent winner, you need players who believe that they're playing for a consistent winner and not questioning coaching decisions, especially huge ones like who the starting quarterback should be. So moving on, the Dolphins will be coaching against the Carolina Panthers in the 2021 Reese's Senior Bowl. It's a great chance to see prospects from across the country. Some players opted out due to COVID, which makes sense. I mean, a lot of things were unknown at the time, but another thing that's left unknown is how they've developed as players and if they would fit with the Dolphins or for 30 other NFL teams who won't get their hands on those players at the Senior Bowl, who want to see the tape of practice and the tape of the game itself. So it's a great opportunity to sort of get an up-to-date look at some of these prospects and what they can offer at the next level. So the Dolphins will be coaching the national team, while Matt Rule and his staff for the Panthers will be coaching the American team. The entirety of the roster has not been released yet. The Senior Bowl has been releasing bits of the roster by position group on social media. It's actually a pretty cool thing, really helping to build some anticipation for the event. In the past, the Senior Bowl is kind of viewed as a very niche scouting football thing. But I think it's become a little bit more of a notarized game. And I think, you're going to see as each year goes, the way Jim Nagy's sort of operating it, getting it publicized, making it more of a fun, super college superstar event and sort of advertising it like that rather than a NFL draft, obscure players, and also getting some of these names that they've gotten can really help draw some eyes to the event. So it's going to be interesting to see who the rosters are for each team. But they have only released the offenses, which is who we're going to be talking about in this episode. We'll get to the defenses later, and they still have to release the entirety of that, as well as the specialists who will be there. So let's jump into it. So for quarterback position, the Dolphins will have Sam Ehlinger from Texas, potential backup candidate in the middle of the rounds. He really might fit, being Tua's backup. They do run a similar style of offense at Texas, at least with the RPO, and he's more of a runner than Tua is, which might be good for a backup, having a more physically capable guy that you have faith can sort of get banged up a few times if the offensive line's banged up, and that's why Tua's hurt. So a guy like Sam Ehlinger in the middle rounds, I wouldn't be opposed if you think he could develop into a good backup. Felipe Franks from Arkansas is another quarterback the Dolphins will work with, as is Ian Book from Notre Dame, another guy who potentially could be a backup option for another team as well. I don't think any of the guys the Dolphins are working with are genuine starters or guys who can be drafted as guys to compete for starting positions. I think they're all developmental guys who potentially could further down the line, maybe a guy like Ian Book with his physical tools, but realistically, these guys are going to be backups in the league, and as it happens, most won't make it, unfortunately. So for the American team, they have a little more of the talent. They have Kellen Mond from Texas A&M, Kyle Trask from Florida, and Jamie Newman from Wake Forest. So it'll be really cool to see Kyle Trask and Jamie Newman, because Jamie Newman was out due to COVID-19. He refused to play the season, which makes sense. He didn't need to. He put a great junior season on film. But at the end of the day, it'll be a really good opportunity for coaching staffs across the league to get an updated look at Newman and that arm, which was live when he played before. Kyle Trask, he'll be competing against high-level talent on both sides of the ball, so I think it'll be great for him to showcase if he can actually be a guy at the next level. I don't think he really has it physically. I just don't see it there. A guy like Trask, it's like a Big Ben mold. Like he's a good pocket passer, not that mobile. He's hard to bring down. He's just huge. But does that work anymore? I mean, we haven't really seen it, at least not in a modern way since Big Ben. Considering Josh Allen, a guy like Josh Allen is so much more athletic, even though he's that big, and guys along those lines are more athletic compared to Kyle Trask. So I think he'll have a tough time. But if he impresses with his personality and his leadership, there's a chance he can find himself drafted in the middle to late rounds as a backup option. Mac Jones, Alabama's quarterback, also accepted an invitation for the Senior Bowl, but he has not been placed on a roster as of this recording. He might be when you're listening, but we don't know where he is. I would guess he's going to be on the American team because if you give Flores, Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, Najee Harris, as well as some offensive linemen, I think everyone's going to really buy into that bias that the Senior Bowl has for Miami. Moving on to the running back position, Mark Ingram is available now. This isn't related to the Senior Bowl. The Ravens released Mark Ingram. He's over 30, but he's still good. He's definitely someone who could provide leadership to the Dolphins running back room and offense overall. He's someone who's won before with the Saints and the Ravens and understands how an offense should look, especially high-powered ones that focus on the run. So I definitely think he could provide some leadership, but depends on his price. I really think that there's options in the draft here that will be much cheaper and you'll have for a longer period of time and just more control of from a contractual standpoint with potentially higher ceilings considering that Ingram is on the wrong side of 30. But still, I think for a couple seasons, he does have something to offer when healthy. It's just that as he ages, it's getting tougher and tougher to play a full 16-game stretch. So moving on to some of those potential options in the draft, Ramondre Stevenson from Oklahoma, Demetric Felton from UCLA are a couple guys who the Dolphins will have on the national team. Michael Carter from UNC is someone who I think they'll take a close look at. He's a really good pass-catching option out of the backfield, kind of like a Myles Gaskin, but potentially a stronger runner in between the tackles. But we'll see, because I think Myles Gaskin has really earned himself a shot at the table, at least as the second back, entering the season next year, if they do draft someone high or sign someone. But if they don't, then I really think Myles Gaskin could just share the load with someone they draft, maybe one of these guys or someone they sign in free agency. But Myles Gaskin is going to be in the picture. He just might have to compete with some of these guys. Then there's Khalil Herbert from Virginia Tech, a fullback as well, Ben Mason from Michigan. The one guy I actually really like in the Senior Bowl, I'd be excited to see on the American side, is Larry Roundtree from Missouri. I think he kind of reminds me of Ricky Williams if you watch him run the ball. And it's definitely because he wears number 34, I won't lie. But he sort of has that compact size that's powerful, well-balanced, but also explosive. And I think he could be an exciting prospect, especially if he falls to those, fourth, fifth round. I would love to take a chance on a guy like Larry Roundtree, but you may have to snag him up earlier if there is a run on running backs. So some other running backs on the opposition: Kylan Hill from Mississippi State, Chris Evans from Michigan, and Elijah Mitchell from Louisiana Lafayette. Elijah Mitchell's a little bowling ball. He definitely is a powerful runner, but I don't know if it's going to translate, especially at the NFL level when everyone's as strong and fast as you were in college. At the wide receiver position, the Dolphins are going to be working with Ben Skoranek from Notre Dame, Des Fitzpatrick from Louisville, Dwayne Eskridge, Western Michigan, Kay Johnson from South Dakota State University, as well as Tylan Wallace from Oklahoma State. Tylan Wallace has had a great career at Oklahoma State. He definitely showed really good slot ability, also being able to take it on the outside, strong hands, really good after the catch. The problem is is he going to be like a Christian Kirk, or is he going to end up getting into the next level and struggling to separate because he's not as twitchy as you need to be in the NFL to get away from these corners? So that's sort of the thing. He was going up against weaker defenses in college, but he did show enough that, if he can show well at Senior Bowl against guys who he'll be competing against at the next level, then I think you take a look at Tylan Wallace in that 3rd, 4th round range if he's available to supplement a potentially higher round pick that you took, in Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle earlier in the draft. Nico Collins is a receiver from Michigan, big body type, similar to Devontae Parker and Preston Williams. If you're looking to potentially replace them or get a younger, cheaper option, Nico Collins could be that. And then there's also Frank Collins from Arizona State. And of course, Devonta Smith, who will not be participating in the game or any of the practices, unfortunately. So the Dolphins coaching staff won't get to work on him on the field, but they'll get a chance to get a sense of his overall demeanor, personality, and see if he's a culture fit. For the American team, their receivers, they have a couple of exciting players. Kadarius Toney from Florida, Amari Rogers from Clemson, Cornell Powell from Clemson as well. They also have Shea Smith from South Carolina, Josh Palmer from Tennessee, Marquez Stevenson from Houston, and a couple other guys, including the best name in the entirety of the Senior Bowl, Racey McMath. Yes, Racey McMath from LSU. Too bad I didn't hear much of his name throughout the season. So I don't know where he's going to be projected potentially later at the bottom end of the draft. And then the tight end position, not many great tight ends after Kyle Pitts. And unfortunately, Kyle Pitts will not be playing in the Senior Bowl. The tight end position for the Dolphins will be Tony Poljan from Virginia, Kenny Yeboah from Ole Miss, Hunter Long from Boston College, which is Flores' alma mater. So if we see him drafted to Miami, that might be a little bit of a push to, hey, let's get a BC Eagle in the building. The opposition does have one of the more exciting tight end prospects in the Senior Bowl, Trey McKitty from Georgia. He'll be playing for Matt Rule and the Carolina Panthers side of the squad. And then Noah Gray from Duke, Quentin Morris from Bowling Green, as well as Kylan Granson from SMU. The offensive line position for Miami, they do have some good names, which is a great opportunity for them to see if they can bolster the interior now that they've really focused on the exterior with Robert Hunt and Austin Jackson. Obviously, if the right player falls to them, you have to take a chance on them. But really focusing on strengthening the center position, the interior of the Dolphins' offensive line will be huge in establishing more of a run game and giving Tua more time than they had this past season, and going from that 10-win type of offense to a more explosive on a consistent basis, because you can win in multiple ways, and that starts with an offensive line. So they'll get to work with guys like Creed Humphrey from Oklahoma, who could be a potential center prospect, Aaron Banks from Notre Dame as a guard, James Hudson from Cincinnati. The opposition, the American team, will have Trey Smith from Tennessee, Alex Leatherwood from Alabama, as well as Deontay Brown from Alabama. So those are two guys as well that are big, strong, great candidates for the Dolphins to draft in the middle of the rounds, as well as Jack Anderson for the American team, who went to Texas Tech. So there's a lot of unknowns with these players. We rattled off a bunch of names. You might have known a few from some Saturdays that you've watched. Obviously, certain position groups you might not know at all. But these are guys who really will have a great opportunity to see if they can be players at the next stage, and these are guys whose names you might hear again. I mean, if you go back and look at the rosters of some of the Senior Bowls of the past, you'll really recognize a lot of players as guys who no one was talking about, and it made sense. Oh, they had a good week, a good game, and now they're good players. So it's a great opportunity, and the Dolphins getting a front row seat of that is an awesome opportunity as well. So the quarterbacks obviously are always going to be under the spotlight too with the Senior Bowl, but this year none of those top guys are going to be there. I mean, none of them are seniors. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Zach Wilson, they all will have their own sort of probably pro days or virtual pro days. Not sure how they're going to organize that before the draft. Remember how Tua did his this past year, where they sort of went to an abandoned, tiny little weird field. It was like an Arena Football League field, and they had that video with Trent Dilfer. Other players might do something like that. Maybe have a few scouts be there live in person, but those players are going to have to figure out their own thing, as they're not seniors, so they're not going to be here, unfortunately. But that might be a good opportunity to draw some attention away from those quarterbacks and really allow players to shine, guys who might not have had that opportunity if those really big names were there. So it's a big week for quarterbacks like Ian Book and Kellen Mond to potentially make an impression on NFL franchises, and an opportunity for those unknown guys like we talked about, perhaps maybe from smaller schools, to go up against their peers, guys that they'll be competing against at the next level, and show NFL coaches and decision makers what they have. It's important that the Dolphins coaching staff be on the lookout for those guys who are flashing, who potentially are a little raw, but the tools that they're showing, if you work them right, these can be really good contributors to winning teams. And remember, there's going to be a modified NFL Combine as well, with limited access to the players for teams. So Miami has as good of an opportunity as any other franchise to get really good, valuable pre-draft work in. So I'm excited. I'm really excited, and especially to see some of the guys the Dolphins will get to work with, and to know that regardless of if they're taken or not, they got to read on them. And so you have to know that whoever is making decisions for the Dolphins is making it in their best interest and for the organization's best interest. So guys like Devonta Smith, obviously, Larry Roundtree for me personally, Tylan Wallace, as well as Najee Harris. Devonta Smith, Najee Harris. We're saying their names so much with the Dolphins these days. So moving on to some team news, Miami Dolphins, or administrative team news, which could really point to something pretty big, although we don't know. This is more of a speculative statement here, but the team announced the promotion of assistant offensive line coach Lemuel Jean-Pierre to replace offensive line coach Steve Marshall. As you all know, there's currently a vacancy for the Dolphins offensive coordinator position. So normally when a new offense is brought in, the offensive coordinator likes to bring in their own coaching staff to help supplement their scheme and have coaches that they trust and they trust that they can properly convey how they want their offense to be run. Obviously you enter a new franchise as an offensive coordinator, you have a vision for how you play call, for how the type of players you want to best execute, to help supplement your quarterback that you might have, or the quarterback you're looking for, or, the best players on your team already. However it is you operate, you want certain types of players to play certain types of roles for your offense. The best teams have coaches who, know those roles, inside and out, and coach to that exact scheme. So it's important that there's an entire vision. So the fact that the Dolphins have promoted Jean-Pierre from assistant offensive line coach to head offensive line coach, when for an offense, the O-line is one of the most important things. It really makes me think that the team is going to look to promote from within, because they know that whoever they're promoting from within isn't going to look to outsource, a lot of those position groups. They're just going to replace the holes that are already there. And the fact that they promoted Coach Jean-Pierre makes me think, hey, maybe a guy like George Godsey or Eric Studsville just got promoted to offensive coordinator, and they're just sort of waiting to announce it maybe, or for whatever reason have one or two more interviews to wrap up. But the fact that move happened, it would really fall in line with promoting, other staff to elevated positions like they've done in the past with Josh Boyer.
17 yards, looking for more, over the middle, and what a catch! Gesicki with one hand! First and goal, Miami.
Yeah, he took a shot. He probably should have stayed down to give his team a chance to get some other guys in. But you talk about late hands. Sometimes you wait for those hands to go up so you don't want the defenders to be able to play you. But that one he just put up like he had a catcher's mitt on.
And lastly, congratulations to Miami Dolphins former rookie, now entering his second season, Raekwon Davis, for being named to the Pro Football Writers of America all-rookie team as a defensive tackle. He was the 56th overall pick last year. He was the guy that Flores was absolutely excited to draft, making gestures as if he was shedding offensive guards. He was really excited and definitely saw something in Raekwon Davis, and it was a great value pick if he hits his ceiling, especially with that 56. He's a second-round guy, and he flashed dominance at certain points in spurts. He's this big, strong, physical guy who at the point of attack is hard to move and get off his spot. So he finished the season with 40 total tackles, and I just think combination of him with Christian Wilkins going forward, that's definitely exciting to really expect the defense to stay consistent year in and year out. Because again, if the Dolphins want to build a winner, they're going to need a good defense. And having Brian Flores at the helm is really comforting for that. But you also need guys at the anchor who you have faith in. And it's great to see Raekwon Davis being mentioned and honored for a good season that he had. And good for us fans to know that the future looks bright there on the interior of the defensive line. So that's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the PhinsPod. As always, I hope you get something out of the episode. Please remember to subscribe to the show wherever it is that you're listening, just to never miss a chance to chat about your favorite team, the Miami Dolphins. The show itself is available on all platforms: Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube. Continue the conversation on Twitter and Instagram at PhinsPod, and check out the site for news and content, phinspod.com. I hope you have an amazing day. Until next time, stay safe. Love y'all.